Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm Claire Jones. If we haven't already met, I'm an author and small publisher committed to change the world for the better through inclusive stories and practices. And we are jumping on today for my Authorvision Facebook Live series, where I've interviewed the amazing and inspiring writing peeps in my network to discuss the personal visions that have shaped our lives and careers. If you're joining us, please like, comment, share below. Let us know that you're here. And today I'm talking to Bre. Yay! Glad to have you here.
What's going on? Thank you for having me. Very excited.
Yeah. Well, let's dive right on in. What's your backstory? How did you get to where you are today?
Oh, goodness. Backstory, short version is I was always kind of a storyteller, a little bit of a fibber as a kid. And then I hated reading though, but fifth grade, my teacher was like, you hate reading because the books you're reading are too easy for you, so you're bored. So she handed me 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea because I'm a massive nerd for ocean facts. And I loved it, but I didn't like the ending because I was like, I want them to stay with Captain Nemo. Sorry, spoiler alert. And she was like, all right, well, rewrite the ending. If you rewrite it, I'll read it. And that was like, whoa, there are people who would want to hear my story. And it was complete trash. I don't even remember what I wrote, but that changed my life. And I've been writing. So I was 10 years old and I've been writing since.
I absolutely love that you brought that up because I think I also tried to read 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in fifth grade. I think that's when I tried to start.
It's like going back and reading it, I was like, why did I read this? Like, I love Jules Verne, but yeah, I'm like, as a child, did I understand any of this? And probably not.
Yeah. Like, I don't think I ever actually finished the book. I think I still have it on my shelves in like the perpetual TBD to finish later on stage. I have several books in that category.
Valid. I will say, if you want a little, like, what's the word, like incentive, it comes back in another one of his books, which I thought was a lot of fun. So
yeah. I tend more towards fantasy than sci-fi as a reader. And I think that was also the age where I was reading like Little Women and like House on the Prairie and, like all of those books as well. And I was staunchly avoiding Harry Potter around that time because it was so popular for me.
Yeah, I definitely went through that phase. I do remember, Hunger Games I had read, and then Divergent was blowing up, and I was like, I'm gonna read Pride and Prejudice instead because that makes me interesting. I'm not like other kids. False. And I didn't understand Pride and Prejudice the first time. So
yeah, that's so funny because we have like a reading system, like a reading difficulty system in our elementary school where like I think it was like purple and black were the hardest books.
Okay.
And I made it my like raison d'etre to read all the black books.
Yes.
It's like I'm so superior to all the other fifth graders.
Absolutely. I was unofficially competing with a girl in my class. I'll never forget her, Laurel, because she would come back every day with a new book, and they were always massive, like Don Quixote size books.
Yeah.
And just like the librarians loved her, and I was like, I'm gonna be better than you, and I never was.
It is astounding how much of my personal story and the stories that I hear from people that I interview is fueled by spite.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What's so funny is Laurel was like, one day she was like, I'll read your story for you and I'll tell you if it's good or not. And she would like leave really helpful comments. And I was like, I swore this girl hated me. I thought we were rivals. And no, so shout out to Laurel. She was cool.
Yeah. I love that you bring that up. So what was the journey like after fifth grade, like high school, college, all that jazz?
A lot of writing, a lot of fan fiction, because I'm a trash panda of a nerd.
Yes.
I will dive right into a fandom and I'm like, that character right there, I'm going to hurt them.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, but it was fun because I think people look down on fan fiction for a lot of reasons. But
absolutely,
it's interesting because that's how I learned to write. Is I was putting my stuff out there, and you get real-time feedback, and from a bunch of snarky teenagers who don't know how to give constructive feedback. So true. And then you have the people who you don't realize are older and in the fandom, and they give you the real feedback that sometimes you're like, oof, you're right. So
Yeah.
I learned a lot from that, and I still continue to learn from that community.
Mhm.
So sometimes, I was just talking to a new writer friend of mine, and she was like, you discuss like intimacy really well for someone who, sorry, I'm a lonely little hermit. And I was like, oh yeah, it's all the writing.
Yeah, yeah, right. People are like, how do you become so self-aware? And I'm like, well, I've put myself in other people's shoes literally since I could read.
Yeah, I take this one little piece of me and then I give it a personality. I give it a quirk I don't have, and I say, this isn't self-insert.
Right. And like, it's so funny with all the people who hate on fan fiction too, because it's now fan fiction that is fueling all of the AI storytelling.
Right. And then, the largest fan fiction repository ever just got taken down. And that's been a wild ride to follow.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. How are we feeling about AO3?
So I locked my fix because I was like, ChatGPT can't have this. But then, yeah, when it was down for 30 hours and it came back briefly for a second and I was like, we're good. And then it was gone. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't feel like starting this book. I'm trying to read Red Rising. And I was like, I don't feel like starting this.
Yeah.
When I am currently obsessing over the Spider-Verse. So painful 30 hours.
Yeah.
And I only knew it came back because someone I subscribed to posted their story. And I was like, oh, sweet, we're back on.
Yeah, I checked in yesterday and like I saw the site, but it was completely unformatted. So it was just like a bullet list of links.
God, plain text in the most terrifying form.
Yeah. And I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
AO3, rest in peace.
Oof.
All right, getting back on topic.
Right.
What personal visions kept you going along this route? Like, how did you keep yourself with the momentum going?
I think it's changed a lot. So I will say, I mean, I'm sure all of us have that time and when we're young and we're like, I could be famous off of this one thing I do. And you like do your little famous interviews with like Jimmy Kimmel in the shower.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm amazing. So I did that for a little bit and I reached a point probably when I was like 14 and I was like, I would hate to be famous. I don't want that. I literally just want to write silly, stupid characters and have other people say, this is a silly little guy. I love him. And I can go, same, here you go. Here's more. And that's it. So for me, it's just the joy of crafting the story in the most sadistic form, being the person who likes to take a character apart, break them completely and put them back together. And yeah, that's my whole thing.
I mean, there's such great validation when you come across someone who is like, this is me, and having that instant camaraderie. Like I say that a lot when I'm talking about marketing, especially marketing for creatives, like we need to shock them with relatability because we have to be so relatable to their lives, so relatable to them that they're like, oh my God, I see me in you. And so therefore I love you because I love me.
Yes, that is, I think, one big thing that I was afraid of, and I realized is my strength when I started editing for people freelance, because I know how terrifying it is to hand someone your story. That's your baby right there. And so I think people would, and I was offering beta reading when I first started out, and like your whole job is to critique somebody's story. And I know they're scared of that. And I was like, my dude, I'm not here to disrespect you. I am here to just tell you what could be better and what's already working. And you're on top of this report that tells you what you can work on. I have like 60 comments of me just going, oh.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's realizing that like, hey, this person who may be a professional or this person who may be really accomplished in this industry, a writer that you look up to, they're still also just a silly little guy who's just glad to talk about stories.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up fan fiction to begin with this, because that is like a braving ground for this type of feedback, like whether it's constructive or non-constructive, mean or nice, or, like just completely simping over what you've written. Like you get that practice, you get that experience with letting those comments either roll off of you or, choosing which comments to focus on versus the negative comments. Like, I've been thinking a lot about this in terms of when people are pursuing traditional publishing, like they have to get rejected time and time and time and time and time and
Yes, and
time
that's
and time.
demoralizing after a while.
Yeah, but you know, if you start in the world of fan fiction, you kind of don't care as much.
I waited 8 months to get 10 reads. Like, I know what this is.
Right. Right. And like, it's always funny how much we have to develop that resilience to rejection.
Yeah, especially for such sensitive people in the creative field. Like, it's all, like I said, those are our babies, and we're like, no, you have to love them, because if you don't, then you don't like me, and I need to be liked.
Yeah.
And yeah, like just learning that, hey, your story's not for everybody, and just because someone said like this could be fixed doesn't mean they hated it, you know. And just because someone loved it doesn't mean it's good.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I actually briefly considered doing my acknowledgements section on my first novel to all the haters over the years,
Ooh.
because I realized, I mean, probably later than I should have realized, but you know, whatever, should.
It comes to us all eventually. It's fine.
Yeah, that the haters along the way made me stronger. They made me better, because I did have all of these people around me nitpicking me and criticizing me and doubting me and minimizing me and disregarding me, and having that practice year after year after year after year of like hearing this and still keeping going.
Yeah.
Like, that's a skill set.
Exactly. And we don't think of it as a skill set because we're really just here to have fun. And we don't think about it as us actually building that level of resiliency, some empathy, and like understanding how to give feedback and how to receive it. I still think of one comment, somebody was just pissed with me in the comments, and they're like, you wasted our time with the last 6 chapters. And I was like, yeah, but it was fun. And I argued with them, and I look back now and I'm like, I wasted their time. They were right.
Yeah,
You
yeah. I mean, what actually inspired me to start writing fiction in the first place was realizing how many bad books I've read over the
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
I was like, they've made it to library shelves and bookstore shelves, and they have like legitimate fan followings,
Yes.
and they're arguably bad books.
Who's the, I don't, not to call anybody out, but like everybody knows, and they're fully self-aware. Siggy, what's it called?
I know
You
who
know,
you're
the
talking
person
about,
who
but
writes like the Microsoft paperclip
oh,
romance,
Clippy.
and
I think it's Clippy.
yeah, Clippy. And it's like, if these exist and have a following, I can do something.
Right? I've realized how forgiving readers are.
Yeah. And sometimes we're just here to turn our brains off. So like, I haven't read any of those, but I'm like, you know what? If you can put that out there, good for you.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
off.
I mean, that's one of my favorite things about introducing people to the romance genre, because people just think it's like just bodice rippers, just like, you
Yeah.
know, Regency era, like the Duke and the, you know, maid
Yeah.
who fall in love.
Seduced by sunlight or something. You know?
Right. Yeah, yeah. And when in reality, it's so varied and it's so
Yes.
broad, and there's like a flavor for literally everyone out there.
Yeah.
And you're going to find your niche, no matter what that niche is. And that again goes back to the whole fan fiction thing, is like, there are people out there. I mean, that's the glory of the internet too, is connecting all of these weirdos together with these like super niche interests.
Yeah.
That
If
like,
you think that you're weird, we promise you're not.
yeah, yeah, there is most definitely someone weirder than you out there.
Yeah, and there's definitely other people out there who are also into the same thing. And if they're not, if you say it on some site, you know, Tumblr, Twitter, if you say it, somebody's gonna go, yo, I never thought about that. Send me everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, OP, where is your essay on this?
Yes. When people are like, welcome to my TED Talk, I'm gonna talk about this. And then they just stop and I'm like, no, I was gonna listen.
Yeah, 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 right. Well, we've kind of already started talking about this, but like, what lessons did you learn along the way with all of this?
Oh, well, obviously, like we said, building that resiliency and learning how to give people feedback, and realizing, like I said, we're all just a little piece of trash that's just trying to have some fun. And kind of taking that into my actual life. So sometimes I'm
Mhm.
like, this doesn't interest me, but it's also not hurting anybody.
Mm,
And good for you. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
And just kind of being endlessly supportive, even if I don't like it, even if I don't, if it's something where I'm like, I don't think that's right, but you're not hurting people. So I'm gonna leave you alone. It's none of my business. Learning to do that was huge for me. Just being like, that's not my fight and it's not my problem.
Mm-hmm.
But also just learning how to write. I think a lot of people, and I make this mistake with my artist friends where I'm like, I wish I could draw like that.
Mm.
And people are like, I wish I could write like that. And I'm just like, my dude, I've been writing since I was 10. I wrote myself through some deep depression. This isn't a talent. I've
True
just
story.
been here a long time.
True story.
Nothing
10,000
else to do.
hours.
Yes. So, if you spend those people who were like, yeah, I spent 3,000 hours on this video game, and they're a master and they know all the glitches and how to use them, that's us. And I'm like, yeah, no, this isn't a very profound paragraph that I wrote. It's something that's like from way back when that I edited 17 times and finally found a place to put it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I think there's such value in playing around with the media, whatever the media is that you're creating with. Is like, people think that every sentence has to be perfect, every brush stroke has to be perfect, and at the end of the day you just have to try it. Like, I hate the phrase, there is no try, there's only do.
Yeah, like, shut up, Yoda. We have our own problems with Yoda aside from what he said.
I had a boss that used to quote that to me all the time, and I just wanted to strangle him. And like, because there's such value in just trying. There's just such value in it.
You're gonna suck, and you gotta be okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's fine. And I think I remembered that recently I started teaching myself to skateboard. Don't ask me why, I'm stupid. And I fell so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot what it's like to start something.
Mm.
And something that like requires skills. And that took me back to my writing. And when I'm working with my clients, because especially after COVID, a lot of people were like, I could write a book. And I firmly believe everyone should get to tell a story.
Absolutely.
But not everybody wants to read your story.
Yeah.
And just because you can write a book doesn't mean it's good. So, sometimes they bring me their manuscript and I'm like, this is amazing. You finished it. You put so much work into it. It's beautiful. However, and you got to be like, it's okay that it stinks. Keep it anyway, because like, God, I've seen some of my old manuscripts and I'm like, I don't want to read 2 sentences out of this.
Yeah.
So it's okay to suck. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I think people, I mean, myself included, I had to kind of break myself of this habit over the years of being like, I'm going to do it all at once.
Yeah. No, you're not.
Like, I'm going to write a book in 2 months. Like,
don't do it.
Yeah, because it's like trying to, it's the whole New Year's resolution thing and going to the gym for like 1 month every single day and then burning yourself out and hating everything afterwards. Like, you just have to have those little doses of trying, and then you build on those little doses of trying all along the way. And then eventually, like, you have a book.
Exactly. Yeah, I did NaNoWriMo for the first time, which was rough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had like a community of friends to do it with, but I was like, oh, this is how people write 50,000 words in a month. And then I didn't touch it for 1.5 years because I was exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, you gotta, I know everybody hates the whole, like, you have to have your daily routine of write a little bit every day. Because we're always like, Virginia Woolf was on a different level.
Totally. Absolutely. She didn't have a job. She didn't have like, she laid around all day.
Mark Twain's like, you gotta write every day, even if it's not in the morning. And I'm like, dude, your job was to write.
Yeah, you literally just stayed in a cabin in the middle of nowhere and did nothing else.
Exactly. Ernest Hemingway wasn't drunk. Like, we got to remind each other, like, these people who are like, the advice is sound. You do have to write every day, but it doesn't have to be the project. Sometimes I'm in the car at a stoplight and I'm like, that's a good line. I don't know any context about it. I write it down. I've got a whole note full of lines. I haven't used them in years. That's writing. That's something.
Yeah, I can't do the everyday thing, honestly. Like, I'm just not one of those writers. Like, because I have
Absolutely.
to sink into the story too when I'm writing. And so I do like 5-hour writing blocks. And so, like,
Yeah.
every Sunday, I do a 5-hour writing block because that's the best for my creative flow. But you kind of, again, have to try things out in order to figure that out for
Yeah.
yourself.
Find your rhythm.
Exactly.
Definitely. Yeah,
So,
I count it as, when you tell yourself a story to go to sleep and it's that same story that you build every single day. That's writing, friend. It didn't touch a piece of paper, but you wrote a story in your head. That's
yeah,
practice. Good for you.
yeah. I do most of my outlining in my head when I'm falling asleep. Like,
Absolutely.
I just go through the story and I'm like, all right, we're going to this, and then we're like, and I just like vision it in the movie in my head, and like eventually I have a fully fleshed out outline. And
Right. And
then
if
I
you
sit
wake up and you
down and
remember it, then you know it's good.
yeah, right. Like, if I'm making myself cry while I'm like visualizing the story in my head, or turning myself on while
Yeah,
I'm visualizing the story in my head, then it's also going to provide that for my readers as well.
exactly.
I mean, we're talking about practical tips, tools, and strategies here. So what else would you add to that list for supporting yourself as you pursued all of this?
I mean, obviously the age-old advice of like read all the
Mm,
time and
yes.
like diversify your reading because,
Mhm.
like fantasy, everybody knows the tropes in fantasy.
Yeah.
But have you ever like been reading a fantasy book and there's a trope you don't expect there because it's usually in like romance,
Mm,
and then you're like, and it's not a fantasy romance, it's just a
mm,
straight, Tolkien fantasy.
mhm,
And then you're like, oh snap. And it's different. It feels different. It changes the tone. So, diversify your reading, read all the time, write even when it's awful.
mm,
I tell everybody if you have the space for it, get like a $30 whiteboard from
mm,
Amazon. My
mm,
whiteboard's constantly full of
mm.
plotting ideas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have a notebook where I just like, I'm watching TV or I'm eating dinner and I'm like, idea. And I run
Yeah.
to my little notebook and I'm like, write it
Oh
down.
yeah. That moment when you like I've been cooking and I remember I was at my parents' house, I was cooking and my mom was like, "What are you doing?" Because I was using the spice bottles to plan out a scene while something was boiling. And I was like, shush, I figured it out. So like let the inspiration come where it comes. Sometimes you're gonna look crazy. I've definitely had notes written down my arm. It's fine.
Yeah. I have a friend who has a whiteboard, like a waterproof whiteboard in her shower, because she gets
That
the
is
best ideas in
genius.
the shower. And so she just like keeps it. And so whenever she gets it, she can just write it down in the middle of her shower.
Do me a favor, ask your friend for the link.
Okay, I will. I'll message you.
I love that. I need that. No, yeah. That I think it's from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I've
Mm,
only seen the GIF. That guy, he's in the mailroom and it's a whiteboard covered in stuff. And
yeah.
he's like,
The
what's his
red
name?
yarn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look like that all the time. And
Hmm.
it's fun that way. Embrace your inner gremlin.
One of my most viral TikTok video that I've ever had is an image of Brennan Lee Mulligan. I don't know if you know who he is.
I
He's
love
like
Brendan.
dungeon master in the world of
Yes.
D&D streams for the audience out there. And because dungeon masters have to world build so much, there's a lot, like the Venn diagram between dungeon masters and fantasy writers is pretty much a circle. And
Yeah.
the picture is of him in the middle of like changing the batteries in the smoke detector, and he's like standing on a chair and he's just like frozen, staring into space in the middle of like changing.
He figured something out.
Yeah, because he was working shit out in his head. And I like made the TikTok and I was like, this is I'm both a DM and a fantasy writer, so this is literally me 24/7.
Oh, absolutely.
Like just around my house being like, oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I always text my friend, she's used to it. If I open the conversation with like, I'm back on it, and she's like, all right, it's a story. Or I'll send her a GIF of somebody busting down a door and she's like, all right, let's go get drinks. We're gonna talk about a story now.
I mean, there's so much value in having that daydreaming time. I talk about that a lot, is like we need as creatives to intentionally make that space for ourselves to have daydreaming time. Because if we're just going from task to a task to task to task to task and like filling our schedules full of like obligations to other people, which is often what happens, like we need to intentionally schedule in 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there to just like let our brains wander and work on all of that stuff in the background.
Yeah, drive in silence or drive to really, really intense movie music. I do that sometimes. I've started I call it my floor time. Sometimes my gremlin time, where I just lay on the floor. So I definitely look like I'm completely dissociated, but I'm like, I'm working, shush.
Yeah. I love making playlists on Spotify for each of my books. And like, I'll just go through the playlist over and over and over and over as I like solidify those scenes in my head. And I lay on the floor as well sometimes, where I'm just like, I am the music. I am the
As the choir rises.
Yeah.
We see the army cross the
yeah. It's like slow-mo, like he's jumping through the air with the sword.
Yes. And then you actually get to your Word doc and you're like, I have no idea how to write that.
Well, I mean, that's how I sink into character point of views too, is I just listen to that song over and over and over and over again and get into that emotional space. And then like it helps me write the scene more so than
smart. I like that.
Yeah, I have to like pause writing for a second and like put on the playlist and be like, all right, let me like dive back into that emotion so that I can write this scene appropriately.
Yes, I did. I'm bringing it back to fanfic for a second. You know, a songfic?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess for the audience, they're basically a fan fiction where each chapter is based on a song. And it's usually like a specific line, or like it'll follow the lines of the song, the plot will. So songfic is often made fun of for good reason. But I wrote one and I was like, I get it. Because I was like I don't celebrate Christmas. So I was writing a Christmas scene. There were multiple Christmas chapters because this story took place over a few years. And I would just listen to like one Christmas, like a romantic Christmas song a couple of times. And I was like, I get it. I feel it. I understand. And so like for me now, when I'm writing, just like you said, I make these playlists and I'm like, yeah, this chapter has this really dark song for it. And I got to listen to it for a few hours and then not talk to anybody when I'm done, because that's a headspace.
It is. And we have to have that space to process all of those feels.
Yeah. Yes. Aftercare when you're done writing is important, guys.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, anything you want to add before we start wrapping up?
No, just encouragement for everybody to keep writing. The world's wild, it's crazy, and go be a little gremlin, write your story. Someone wants to read it, I promise.
Yeah. I mean,
even if it's just
mode activated.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, this is powerful stuff per usual. This was really fun. And audience, we definitely encourage you to share your own thoughts and feelings and insights with us as well. We'd love to know how visions and habits and journeys like these have impacted you in your own lives. So special thanks to Bre for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having
me. Yeah. So please comment, like, subscribe below, and check out linktr.ee/clairjoyance for all of my links. And where can folks find out more about you?
You can find me on Instagram and Facebook under Hall and Quotes, and with an ampersand. And I'm also hallandquotes.com. I would love to work with anyone who is writing, or if you just want to nerd out, honestly, hit me up.
I mean, we need more nerding out, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Huge Star Wars nerd. I'll never shut up. If you want someone to not shut up with, let's do it.
Yeah. I had a friend in college once who hated being called a nerd. I was like, we're all nerds. It's just like you literally wrote a thesis on Victorian children picture books.
That's hilarious, and I'd read it.
I'm like, we're all nerds. We all got our nerd zones, and we just gotta like find our fellow nerds.
Yeah, that's why it's cool to be a nerd now. And that's also why I call us all little trash gremlins and things like that, because like you have to embrace the fact that you're weird and it's totally fine.
Yeah, we love collecting those shiny rocks, just like
Yes.
raccoons, like really. All right, well, until next time, please remember that you all have extraordinary stories inside of you, and we're rooting for you as you use them to change the world for the better. Take care, everyone.